Hi Shri, how's it going?
Good, very good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. I feel like I've seen you before, spoken to you before.
Maybe playing badminton somewhere? Just joking.
So I was at a customer's place in Dharavi. So I was almost kidnapped. So data point for me is if you solve a customer's problem and if you deliver that experience, the customer is willing to pay you.
Every company starts with a simple question. How do we make an existing product better? For Srivatsa Prabhakar, that frustration came from watching customers walk out of a store. Long queues, missing receipts, endless follow-ups. The experience was quite literally broken. He had spent years inside India's service industry. But he realized something that most people didn't. The real product isn't the device that you buy, but the experience after you buy it.
I'm not somebody who is in any media mostly.
Okay.
We are building silently, and I think our business is such that nobody knows us.
But do you not
It's no.
feel like, although it's silent, it needs to be spoken about more so that more people know about it?
Yeah, yes and no. Maybe yes, because we are looking at a larger public market listing, etc. We are not a consumer business. We are an enterprise business. So, as long as the Apples and the Samsungs and the Louis Vuittons know us, that's good enough.
When Servify started back in 2015, the world of smartphones looked a little different. The iPhone 6 was still the cool new thing, and we were at the peak of the smartphone wars. The same year, Indian smartphone user base had surged to 220 million users, officially surpassing the United States for the first time. But there was a glitch in the system. The honeymoon phase ended the moment the screen cracked. After sales wasn't a service back then. It was a black hole. Paper slips, manual tracking, weeks and weeks of waiting. And for tech giants, service was just a cost center. But where the industry saw a problem, Srivatsa saw an architectural opportunity. Not just repairs, but a software-driven solution for a high-volume, high-stakes reality.
So, what exactly was it that made you feel like this business needs to exist? What exactly did you see? What was that exact moment?
And I spent all my life in the after sales customer experience side of things. But more importantly, if you see from the time iPhones came in or the product started becoming more smarter, it's no longer just a communication device. What happens when they don't work? And mostly the brands always used to offer 1 year of limited manufacturer's warranty, but you use the product for longer. Or even in the first 1 year, because it's delicate and it drops, it can break. The brands always said it's not our problem because you broke it. And that was a huge space where the brands never looked into. But then the insurers came and said, hey, you can buy an insurance and I will cover all those problems that you have. But the experience, don't ask me. I am there to get it fixed, but it may take 1 month. It may not be original parts. And you may have to follow up with me for 200 times. But I will make sure you have some solution, right? And that's where we said, if I buy an iPhone, don't you think Apple should fix it whenever I want it? And that was how this business was thought.
The more I learned about the platform, the clearer it became. We usually think of repair as a straight line. Something breaks, somebody fixes it. But the second you tap file a claim, it actually becomes this chaotic zigzag of logistics and paperwork. In a market like India, your smartphone is your wallet, your office, and your identity. Just Jugaad wasn't going to cut it anymore. With demand for repairs growing by 20% every year, the old manual systems were basically hitting a wall. That's where Servify comes in. The idea was to take all of that back-end chaos and turn it into a clean, invisible engine. One platform that manages the entire life of your device, whether you're in Mumbai or Madrid.
So now, let's say if my phone breaks, right, and I file a repair claim, how does that process usually work? So how much of that is handled by Servify?
So imagine your starting point of reaching out to the brand. It could be a physical interface or a digital interface. The entire platform is us. So you have multiple options of going through an app of the brand, calling the call center of the brand, going to the website and going to the support, or walking into a service center of the brand. At every touch point, the claim gets registered through a platform, and then the decisioning of whether you're eligible or not eligible, all of that happens automated in a manner after you start the process to even getting the entire approvals, etc. And then the physical activity of either picking up from your home or you are walking in and the repairs, that is done by the brand's authorized service centers. So that is where we hand off temporarily for them to do the labor work. But again, the decisioning of whether they've done it right, what parts to use, all of that is through our platform where we make the decision, because ultimately we are underwriting the risk. But the customer doesn't know any of this, nor does the service center know. So that entire experience is owned by us, but physically done by the logistics is done by the logistics partner, the repair is done by the repair partner, but the experience is controlled by us.
The more you zoom out, the harder it is to ignore how quickly the complexity adds up. One broken device is easy to handle, but scale that across dozens of brands, hundreds of models, and multiple countries, and everything adds up. Different markets, different logistics, different expectations. And yet, for the customer, it all has to feel very, very simple, whether they are in Delhi, Dubai, or Dallas. That's where software alone is not enough. You need a system that stays consistent but still adapts locally. At this scale, after sales stops being just support. It becomes infrastructure, quietly working in the background.
When expanding globally, what was the hardest market to get right?
Europe. US was the easiest. I mean, thanks to we did it long ago. Maybe US is also becoming tougher now. But Europe has been the most difficult for various reasons. Europe as a region has 27 countries. At every stage, you go through, unfortunately, some or the other, processes that are very, very long. I mean, because ours is a compliance, regulated business. So we had to have licenses. For everything, there is a new requirement in a new country, and it keeps changing. So Europe, in that manner, I would say, has been the hardest.
The math here is compelling. Servify reported nearly 760 crores in revenue just last year, up 23% from the year before, and raised $160 million from elite investors like Iron Pillar and BNext. It's also preparing for an IPO. The reason it works is simple. In India especially, people keep their phones for years, and almost every device needs service at some point or the other. Because people upgrade every few years, the cycle keeps on repeating. Globally, 70% of smartphone users deal with a cracked screen or a failing battery. That's exactly where the opportunity builds up.
So, how do you guys actually make money?
Okay, so in our business, we bill it to our enterprise partners, maybe an Apple or a Samsung or likes of them. And obviously then that is billed to the retail, who then bills it to the customer, right? So whatever we bill already has our margins kind of included. In the case of, let's say, a protection plan sale, if the customer is paying 100 rupees, that might be sold to the retailer at maybe 70. So retailer makes 30, and the retailer may get it from a brand or from us maybe at 50. And that's how we make money. So we generally make a small fee out of the whole thing.
For an Indian startup working with some of the world's biggest tech companies, good enough was never really enough. Security had to be airtight. Going global meant clearing some of the toughest audits in the industry, from companies like Apple and Samsung. Today, Servify runs after-sales operations across more than 50 countries. What started as an India-first playbook is now working in some of the world's most demanding markets.
So, building credibility with brands like Apple, Samsung isn't easy, especially because it involves a lot of sensitive customer information. How did you manage to build that trust?
So obviously, we had to make sure that we have all the right practices from day one. So, our business involves managing a lot of customer data without no customer knowing that we are managing that data, right? So obviously, when we had to work with all of these customers, they would come and audit our platform to see whether whatever we are promising or whatever we are saying is actually true. But before we actually start doing business, where we start selling something, their security teams, their IT teams have to give a go-ahead saying everything is as they would want it to be. And not just on the technology side of things, as we scaled, whether we have like our audits, stat audits are done by Big Four. Imagine you're working with an American company, a European company, a Middle Eastern company, and you're an Indian company which is so far away. And many times they feel that, hey, are we really doing business with the right company? But when you have these professional organizations, when you have these certifications really saying that, yeah, this is really what they deliver, I think they get that comfort.
What was the toughest brand to crack a partnership with?
Toughest brand to crack partnership, I would say every company, but in particular, recent example was AT&T. Getting into a telco, American tier 1 telco, is not easy. You are such a small company in India, you're going and convincing one of the largest telecom operators in the US is not easy. Same way working with an Apple is not easy. But every company, unless you add value, they will not work with you. But nothing is easier. Even a chroma in India is not easy. It's difficult because they have to see value in you, right?
If you look at it now, the way we use our devices is changing faster than ever. Ownership is no longer a one time decision. It stretches across monthly payments, frequent upgrades, and an expectation of uninterrupted service. In markets like the US and Europe, this shift is even more pronounced. And when buying habits change, the support around them has to change too. For companies like Servify, this shift sets the stage for a very different kind of after sales model.
More and more people are moving from owning the device to a subscription plan, right? So, what changes for Servify in the ecosystem there?
Nothing changes because it's only markets like India where we are still on a, pay upfront and buy it. Versus the US or the West, typically it's a subscription model. Like you don't buy your iPhone, you pay a monthly fee. That's the telco models, right? We've always seen both sides. The only difference is probably here you are able to collect money upfront for the whole tenure. But for us as a company, when we look at our gap reporting, which is a technical term, obviously, but the way we report our business, it doesn't change because even today, even in India, we report on a monthly basis because it's always about having your earning as well as liability that you have to show. So when we are in this business, we can't show full revenue because our liability is for a longer period. So we have to show monthly earning and monthly costs. So nothing changes absolutely whether you sell upfront or on a subscription.
Okay, do you want to grab a coffee?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
good.
Go.
Yes. It's long overdue.
Let's go to the Starbucks. We had
Yes.
Starbucks.
Okay, let's go.
For decades, India was known as the world's back office, the place global companies came to for scale, talent, and cost efficiency. But over the last decade, something has quietly shifted. India stopped being just an execution hub and started becoming a product hub. Digital infrastructure matured, consumer markets grew, and companies started designing for India first and then taking those playbooks global. Servify is one of the clearest examples of that shift. Built in Mumbai, solving a global problem, and doing it with operating leverage that would be impossible anywhere else.
So, you have built this out of Mumbai for almost 10 years, right? So, what makes India a good place for a startup or a company like this?
So I think if you ask me today, India stands so strong on all those foundational elements, whether it is talent, whether it is demography, whether it is a market itself, whether it is growing infrastructure. Digital, for example, I think we are way ahead of so many other countries in the world, right? So if you are building from India for the world, I mean, you have the advantage of great talent at much lower price points and with the right attitude to work 24 by 7. Where else do you find? So I'm a big India believer, if you ask me. At the end of the day, every customer expects great service, predictable service, effortless service, and the brand to take care of them. The only thing is, in many cases, when the country becomes a little more mature, the predictability is very high. For example, a logistics turnaround time or a delivery SLA is predictable, saying 2 घंटे में होगा तो 2 घंटे में ही होगा. यहाँ पे 2 की जगह पे 2.5 हो सकता है क्योंकि सर ट्रैफिक था, सर कुछ लफड़ा था, पेट्रोल खत्म हो गया. वो सब बाहर की कंट्री में नहीं होता है. तो वहाँ पे एक बार प्रोसेस बनता है तो वो प्रोसेस बहुत बार फॉलो होता है. आई थिंक दैट्स द ओनली डिफरेंस वी आस्क इट.
And the company is very one of a kind, right? It's like, how do you even come up with an idea like after sales? Like, how do you even think of that?
Actually speaking, see, we are always service economy, right? After sales is a good segue, I would say. But otherwise, for example, hospitality, of course. Why do you go to Marriott? Because you know, by paying a little extra, you're guaranteed of a great experience. That's exactly what we thought we could do by getting in this space. Because I spent all my life in customer experience after sales, but after sales service was always a cost center. How do you really make it a profit center is trying to be the Marriott in the space, right? So that's why we said, hey, why can't we really deliver experience? And I'm a strong believer next century is a century of service economy. Why do you like to use Zepto or a Blinkit today? It's a service economy. It's not the product. Product आपको दुकान में भी मिलता है, लेकिन आप उसका वो 15 मिनट के लिए डिलीवरी चार्जेस देने के लिए तैयार हो. So I think, one of the big data points for me, and I think I've said this many times before. So I was at a customer's place in Dharavi, young engineer, South Indian, without knowing proper Hindi. So customer had bought the most expensive TV from Dharai, 100 square feet house, TV on a fridge. क्योंकि जगह नहीं है, फ्रिज के ऊपर टीवी रखा है, right? TV that he bought didn't work. And obviously that's how the customer's experience is. I paid so much, it's an aspirational product I saved and bought, and now it's not working. So from a dream buying experience to a very shattered immediate post buying experience, right? So customer तो मारने के लिए तैयार था, माँ बहन का गाली दे रहा था. And I was requesting मुझे 5 मिनट दो मैं देखता हूँ. तो he is not willing to see. He is saying मुझे पैसा दो, टीवी लेके जाओ, तुम्हारा कचरा लेके जाओ. अरे मैं तो जूनियर मोस्ट कंपनी का एम्प्लॉय हूँ, मुझे तो मेरा मालिक छोड़, मेरा ब्रांच का मैनेजर का नंबर मालूम नहीं, नाम मालूम नहीं रे. सो मालिक मतलब CEO. फाइनली रियलाइज कि इसको कुछ नहीं आता है. तो मुझे उसने बोला कि कुछ भी हो तेरा बाप तो होगा. Like he was okay to get money from my dad. So I was almost kidnapped. Then after 1 year, his family was also trying to convince him, saying कि छोड़ दो बच्चा है. Then he said okay. मतलब अभी he realized कि कुछ होने वाला तो नहीं है. After 1.5 years, hours, he said okay देख लो जो भी. And when I looked at it, luckily he had not connected the plug point properly, and वो ठीक से लगाने से TV चालू. So I didn't do much, right? I just solved a problem. The guy was so embarrassed, and on top of it, he was so delighted that it worked. He said, I am an engineer from NASA, and he offered me beer. He said, भाई के घर पे है, जो भी चाहिए बोल. So data point for me is if you solve a customer's problem and if you deliver that experience, the customer is willing to pay you. मैं अगर 1 लाख का फोन खरीदता हूँ, why should I run around? I pay a little more extra. All my issues are taken care, but I get a priority support. So that priority के लिए customer is willing to pay. It may be a small population of customers, but that's still an opportunity to make money. When I say after sales service, for me it is still in my mind effortless service.
What is one thing that you think that India still underestimates about itself?
The size of the opportunity India itself provides. I mean, we are still looked at as a country that looks for affordability, that looks for quick bucks, that doesn't provide enough opportunity. Like we ourselves say that building from India for the world. 5 years from now, we will be building from India to India, right? So I think we are really underestimating our own ability as a country. But I think things are changing, which is good. India itself can be a global power, which is what I think we are really missing out.